Welcome back to Podcast Infinity. Ready for another deep dive to give your brain a dose and grow smarter?
Always ready.
Great! Today we're taking a look at the Korean wave.
Oh, yeah.
That unstoppable force of K-dramas and K-pop.
And so much more.
Right. It's amazing. Get this, in 2023, a full 60%.
60%. Wow.
60% of Netflix subscribers worldwide watched at least one Korean show.
That's huge.
It is. It's a total cultural takeover.
Absolutely. You know, it's especially impressive when you think about how a few decades ago, Korea didn't have nearly as big of a global presence.
That's true. So how did Korean culture explode onto the global stage like this? It can't just be catchy music and addictive TV, right?
Oh, it's much more than that. It's a story of resilience, smart planning, and a little bit of unexpected inspiration along the way.
I love these deep dives, you know, uncovering those hidden layers.
Finding the why.
Yeah, the why behind the what.
Exactly.
But where do we even begin?
Well, our sources suggest a journey back in time.
Back in time.
To a pretty tough period for Korea.
Okay, so to really get the Korean wave, we need to understand where it all came from.
Yes, the early 20th century was a really brutal time for Korea. They were under Japanese occupation.
Oh, right.
And their culture was completely suppressed. Imagine having your language, your traditions,
Even your name?
your name taken away.
That's awful.
It was a deliberate attempt to just erase Korean identity.
Wow. So they went from basically being erased to global domination. It seems impossible.
It really is a remarkable turnaround.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have the Korean War, which absolutely devastated the peninsula
Right.
and left South Korea in really bad economic shape.
Yeah, they had to totally rebuild.
They did. And their focus at first was on manufacturing.
This is where companies like Hyundai, LG, Samsung
Exactly.
came from.
Yeah. They were laying the foundation for their success in entertainment later on.
So they already knew how to produce and scale industries.
Right.
But how did they switch from cars and electronics to captivating the whole world with their culture? How did that happen?
Well, it's an interesting story. It wasn't some big master plan or anything. It was
Okay.
actually a blockbuster from Hollywood that kind of set things in motion.
Oh, wow. Which one?
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. The dinosaur movie?
Yep. In 1994, a presidential report pointed out this amazing fact. Jurassic Park's profits in Korea were the same as selling 1.5 million Hyundai cars.
1.5 million cars.
That was their main export at the time.
So dinosaurs paved the way for K-pop. That's wild.
It was a real wake-up call. The government saw how much potential there was in the entertainment industry.
They realized cultural exports could be just as valuable or even more valuable than their traditional industries.
That's right.
So they decided to make entertainment a priority, like they did with manufacturing.
They did. They focused on developing talent, supporting production, and creating a whole system to nurture and promote Korean culture on a global scale.
Smart. And how did they do that? Exactly.
Well, early K-dramas, for example, focused on relatable stories that reflected Korean life. And they often explored themes of family, duty, and overcoming adversity.
So stuff that would resonate with other cultures.
Exactly. These themes resonated really strongly with audiences in nearby countries, especially China.
Oh, because they have some similar values.
Right, they shared some of those Confucian values.
Interesting. So it sounds like they were taking those universal themes
Yeah,
and adding a distinct Korean flavor.
you got it.
So was China kind of the first domino to fall?
You could say that. There's a show called What is Love, which aired in 1997.
Heck,
It's a perfect example of this early ripple effect. It was a family drama, a couple from different backgrounds navigating marriage and family expectations.
sounds pretty typical.
It might sound simple,
Yeah.
but it really struck a chord with Chinese audiences.
Why?
Well, because it reflected their own lives while offering a slightly more modern perspective.
So it was familiar but new at the same time.
Exactly.
Or was it actually popular? Or are we talking about a small group of viewers here?
Oh no, this was far from a small group. What is Love got an incredible 15% viewership rating in China.
15%. That's a lot of people.
Millions and millions of people tuning in every night to follow this Korean family drama.
Wow, 15% is huge. Clearly, Korean culture was starting to make its mark.
It really was. And this actually sparked a trend of Koreanization,
Koreanization, yeah.
especially among younger Chinese viewers. They started adopting Korean fashion, music, hairstyles, even the language.
All from K-dramas.
K-dramas and some of those emerging K-pop groups like HOT.
Wow, a total cultural shift.
It was.
So from one country to another, Korean culture was spreading like wildfire.
It was.
And our sources indicate that Japan was next.
Interesting.
A country with, a complicated history with Korea.
Yeah.
So that's pretty surprising, right?
It does seem to go against expectations, doesn't it?
It does.
The success of Winter Sonata,
Winter Sonata.
a romantic K-drama that aired in Japan, really shows how powerful storytelling can be. It can overcome cultural barriers.
Okay, tell me more about Winter Sonata.
So the show's lead actor, Bae Young-joon, he became a huge star overnight.
Really?
He even got the nickname Yon-Sama.
What does that mean?
It's a title of respect that's usually reserved for Japanese emperors.
Wow. Talk about winning hearts and minds.
You know, our sources even mention an incident where Baekhyun's fans shut down an airport.
Shut down an airport?
Yeah, when he arrived.
Oh my gosh.
That's intense fandom.
That is.
It really shows how emotionally invested people were in these shows and their stars.
I can see that. So what was it about Winter Sonata that resonated so much with Japanese viewers?
Well, Winter Sonata especially resonated with Japanese women, particularly those in their 40s and 50s.
Okay.
They saw in Baekhyun's character this portrayal of masculinity that was more sensitive, respectful, and emotionally aware.
Interesting.
It was a stark contrast to those often rigid gender roles in Japanese society at the time.
So it was more than just a TV show, it was a cultural commentary.
Yeah, almost a longing for something different.
That's fascinating. And did this wave keep going? Did other parts of Asia catch K-drama fever?
Absolutely. The Korean wave swept across Asia,
Wow.
captivating audiences in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asia.
It was that popular.
Oh yeah, in some cases, K-dramas even had higher viewership numbers than big sporting events.
No way.
It was clear that this was more than just a regional thing, it had global potential. And one of the most surprising chapters of this cultural takeover involved a region you might not expect.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. Where did this wave land next?
Believe it or not, the Middle East.
The Middle East. Seriously.
there.
That's a totally different cultural landscape. How did Korean dramas even find an audience there?
Well, Daejang-gyeom, a historical drama about a woman's journey to become a royal physician, became a smash hit in Iran.
Okay.
It got an incredible 86% viewership rating.
86%? That's insane. What was it about Daejang-gyeom that drew people in? I'm guessing it wasn't just the costumes and the royal setting.
You're right. Daejang-gyeom resonated because it emphasized themes of perseverance, family loyalty, and overcoming adversity.
Things that everyone can relate to.
Exactly. These are universal values that go beyond cultural and religious boundaries.
Right. And what else?
Plus, the show was pretty conservative.
Conservative.
You know, with very little physical contact between characters, so it was acceptable to those more religiously conservative audiences.
So a compelling story, universal themes, and cultural sensitivity, all in one package.
You got it.
Brilliant.
It really is. And the success of Daejang-gyeom proved that the Korean wave wasn't about just exporting Korean culture.
It was about telling stories that tap into universal human experiences and emotions.
Exactly.
So by the early 2000s, K-dramas had basically taken over Asia and were making a splash in other parts of the world too.
They were.
But then came a real game changer. The rise of the internet.
Oh, yeah.
And with it, a new force in the Korean wave. K-pop.
That's right. K-pop took that foundation laid by K-dramas and amplified it using the power of the internet.
Wow. Creating a global phenomenon unlike anything we'd seen before.
It really was something else.
Okay, so we're about to enter the world of catchy hooks, synchronized dance moves, and massive global fandom.
It's going to be exciting.
It is. But before we dive into the world of K-pop,
Okay.
we're going to take a quick break.
All right, stay tuned.
So K-pop, that's Korean pop music. It really came out of the groundwork laid by K-dramas, right? And it rode that wave of the internet to a global audience. It's this captivating mix of music, visuals, and, carefully crafted personalities.
Oh, yeah, it's like a perfectly packaged cultural explosion.
It is.
But where did it all start? Our sources suggest a similar path to K-dramas, starting regionally before going global.
That's exactly right. Those early K-pop groups like NRG and Sex Keys, they gained traction through TV appearances and concerts in places like China, Hong Kong, Japan.
So they were strategically hitting those same markets that had already embraced K-dramas. Absolutely, they knew their audience. Some groups even put Chinese and Japanese lyrics into their songs.
Oh, smart move.
Right, it helped create that sense of familiarity and connection.
Make the fans feel included from the start.
Yeah, exactly. But let's face it, K-pop is as much about the visuals as it is the music.
It's true.
You've got those perfectly styled idols, the synchronized dance moves, the captivating music videos.
It's a whole experience.
It's a spectacle, a visual and auditory feast that pulls you in even if you don't understand a word they're singing.
Yeah, and musically they really experiment.
They do.
They blend pop, rock, hip-hop, R&B, even traditional Korean elements.
Right. The unique sound that's both familiar and fresh.
And don't forget those earworm melodies, stuck in your head for days.
Oh, absolutely. And that's no accident. K-pop producers are masters at crafting those catchy hooks, those addictive melodies.
They get you hooked.
They stimulate the brain's reward system. It's part of what makes K-pop so irresistible.
Okay, but we can't talk about K-pop's global domination without mentioning Psy's Gangnam Style.
Oh, yeah.
That video was everywhere.
It was.
I felt like the whole world was doing the horse dance.
Gangnam Style was a true watershed moment, It was the first YouTube video to hit 1 billion views.
Like billion.
Unprecedented at the time.
That's crazy.
It brought K-pop into the mainstream. It showed the world just how fun and infectious Korean music could be.
It was a global phenomenon that went beyond language and culture, really.
It did. And it opened the door for so many other K-pop groups, like paving the way for superstars like BTS and Blackpink.
Absolutely. Psy's viral success proved that K-pop had the potential to connect with a global audience, even if you didn't understand the language.
Right. Music can be a unifying force.
And speaking of global reach, we have to talk about K-pop fandoms.
Oh, yeah.
They're unlike anything else in the music industry.
They're incredible.
They're organized, passionate, and fiercely loyal.
They have names, they have colors, they raise millions for charity.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
It is. You know, each group has its dedicated fan base with this strong sense of community and belonging.
It's really cool.
They organize streaming parties, buy albums in bulk, vote in polls, even translate lyrics and content
Wow.
to make it accessible to international fans.
So dedicated.
They're deeply invested in their idol's success, and they wield real power.
Remember when BTS's fandom, the ARMY, raised $1 million for Black Lives Matter?
In 24 hours.
In just 24 hours. Incredible.
It shows you the dedication and the influence these fandoms have.
Yeah.
You know, K-pop agencies really understand this power.
They do.
And they've become very adept at cultivating those parasocial relationships between idols and fans.
Like they're part of the family almost.
Right. They create content that fosters that intimacy, that connection, that feeling of being part of something bigger than yourself.
So smart.
It's brilliant marketing, but it does raise some important questions about the pressures on these idols, the expectations placed on them.
Right. And our sources do point to a darker side of this seemingly perfect, highly polished K-pop world.
There is.
We're talking grueling training, restrictive contracts, and intense pressure to fit these unrealistic beauty standards.
You know, it's important to acknowledge that underneath all the glitz and glamour, there's a human cost to this level of success.
It can't be easy.
The K-pop industry is known for its incredibly demanding training programs.
Oh, I've heard about those.
These young trainees, some starting as young as 12 or 13, they give up their childhoods, their education, their freedom, all for this shot at stardom.
That's a lot to give up.
It is, and they're often bound by these restrictive contracts, sometimes called slave contracts,
Oh, wow.
that dictate every single aspect of their lives.
Really? Yeah, every aspect.
Their diet, their appearance, who they can talk to, how they interact with people.
It's like they're molded into these perfect products.
Right.
But at what cost? What happens to their individuality, their mental health?
That's the dark side of this industry. The pressure to be perfect, to maintain this flawless image, it can be incredibly damaging.
I can imagine.
We've seen idols suffering from exhaustion, eating disorders, anxiety, depression.
That's heartbreaking.
And even tragic cases of suicide.
It's a stark reminder that even the most glamorous, successful industries can have a really dark side.
They can.
It makes you think about the human cost of fame, the pursuit of perfection.
It does. But amidst all these concerns, there's a glimmer of hope, right? Our sources mention growing awareness and a push for change.
There is.
Yeah. There's a movement advocating for better treatment, fairer contracts for K-pop idols.
Oh, good to hear.
Fans are becoming more vocal, using their power to demand more ethical practices within the industry.
So fans can make a difference.
They absolutely can. Now, while K-pop was taking the digital world by storm, K-dramas were also seeing a resurgence, finding a new home on streaming platforms like Netflix.
Oh, yeah, Netflix.
Right. The arrival of Netflix in Korea in 2016 really marked a new chapter for K-dramas.
Like what kind of shows?
Shows like Descendants of the Sun found a huge global audience, racking up billions of views.
Wow, billions.
And then came the pandemic, which just fueled the K-drama craze even further.
People stuck at home.
Seeking comfort.
Escape.
Exactly, and K-dramas provided that.
Perfect timing.
It really was. K-drama viewership went through the roof during the pandemic. Netflix reported that 60% of their global subscribers watched at least one Korean show in 2023.
That's huge.
It really is a testament to the global appeal of these shows.
And Netflix definitely noticed.
Oh, they did. They doubled down, invested $2.5 billion in producing more Korean content.
They saw the value in these stories, the way they were connecting with audiences worldwide.
They did. But what is it about K-dramas that appeals to Western audiences? You know, people who might be new to Korean culture. What sets them apart from, say, typical Hollywood productions?
That's a great question. I'm really curious about that, too.
It's a fascinating question. It's a mix of storytelling techniques, cultural nuances, and universal themes that create something truly unique and captivating.
All right, so we're about to unpack the secret sauce of K-dramas and delve into what makes them so irresistible to a global audience. Stay with us. Okay, so we're back and ready to unpack what makes K-drama so captivating, especially for those of us who grew up on Hollywood movies and TV shows. What is it about these Korean stories that resonates with people all over the world?
Well, one of the key ingredients is how K-dramas handle emotions. They're not afraid to really dive deep into those complex human relationships and explore a whole range of feelings, from intense joy and heartbreak to, those quiet moments of reflection and longing.
So it's a more raw, unfiltered approach to emotions compared to, say, the more restrained style we sometimes see in Western productions.
Exactly. K-dramas let those characters be vulnerable, to cry, to show their anger, to be open about their affection. It's refreshing for audiences who are used to more subtle emotional cues.
Yeah, it's like they're tapping into that universal human experience, the intensity of our emotions, but expressing it in a way that's culturally different but still relatable.
That's a great way to put it. And that emotional depth extends to the characters themselves, K-drama characters often feel more relatable because they're not always perfect or aspirational.
Right.
They make mistakes, they face challenges, they have flaws, just like us.
I've noticed that they're not always those stereotypical heroes or heroines we see in Hollywood.
Right. They feel more nuanced, more human.
More human, yeah.
There's a real focus on growth and development. You see those characters wrestling with their choices, learning from their experiences, and ultimately becoming better versions of themselves.
It's a journey that viewers can really connect with. And our sources also highlighted the wide range of genres and themes that K-dramas explore. It's not just romantic comedies or action, it's everything.
It really is. There's truly something for everyone. You have historical dramas that transport you to different eras, fantasy romances with mythical creatures and supernatural elements, slice-of-life stories that capture the everyday joys and struggles of ordinary people, and of course, those crime thrillers that keep you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. I recently watched a K-drama called Reply 1988.
Oh, I love that one.
It was so heartwarming. It was just a simple story about this group of friends and their families growing up in the 80s, but it was so beautifully done. I laughed, I cried. It made me think about my own childhood, the importance of community and family.
Reply 1988 really captures that magic of everyday moments, doesn't it? And the characters feel like old friends. And then you have shows like Guardian, The Lonely and Great God, which blends fantasy, romance, and history in such a unique and captivating way.
Right. It's like they're pushing the boundaries of storytelling, incorporating elements of magical realism, folklore, things you wouldn't typically see in Western productions. And here's something I found really interesting. Our sources mentioned that a whopping 90% of K-drama scriptwriters are women.
Wow, that's a huge difference compared to Hollywood, where it's still mostly male writers.
Yeah, it's a really significant statistic.
Yeah.
And you can see that female perspective and how female characters are portrayed. In K-dramas, women are often strong, independent, and multifaceted.
They have their own ambitions, desires, and struggles.
They're not just love interests or damsels in distress.
Right, they have agency. They drive the plot, they make their own choices.
And that really resonates with audiences, especially women who are looking for more realistic representations of women on screen. Okay, we can't talk about K-dramas without mentioning the Kanmanem phenomenon. Those handsome, well-groomed leading men. They've definitely captured the attention of viewers worldwide.
It's true. Kanmanem is a cultural phenomenon. It's tied to those Korean beauty standards that emphasize self-care and aesthetics for both men and women.
So it's not just about being handsome, it's about a certain level of polish and refinement.
Exactly. Korean men openly embrace skincare, cosmetics, fashion. It's part of their culture, and it definitely comes through on screen. K-drama leading men are often impeccably styled, flawless skin, perfect hair, impeccable fashion for them.
It definitely adds to their appeal.
It creates this sense of aspirational fantasy for viewers. They look like they stepped out of a magazine.
They do. But it's important to remember that these beauty standards can create pressure, right?
They can.
And contribute to that darker side of the industry we talked about earlier. Those unrealistic expectations, the potential for exploitation.
You're right. It's always important to be aware of the complexities, the potential pitfalls, even when we're enjoying something as fun and engaging as K-dramas.
Good point. So the Korean wave in all its forms is really a fascinating mix, isn't it?
It is. Creativity, cultural influence, complex social dynamics.
It's a story of overcoming adversity, but also a reminder that we need to be mindful. Think about balance, ethical considerations, how we consume entertainment.
It's about being aware.
So for our listeners who are curious about K-dramas, where should they start?
The best way to understand the Korean wave is to experience it yourself. Dive into a K-drama, explore the different genres, see what speaks to you.
Great advice. Be open to a new world of storytelling. Enjoy that emotional roller coaster. Appreciate the cultural differences. And, think critically about both the good and the bad.
The Korean wave is powerful, and it's reshaping global entertainment.
It's a wave that's not going away anytime soon.
That's for sure.
And that's it for our deep dive into the Korean wave. We've covered a lot today, from the historical context to the global impact of K-dramas and K-pop. We've explored the highs and lows, the creativity and the challenges. And hopefully, we've sparked your curiosity to explore this amazing cultural phenomenon even further.
This is Podcast Infinity signing off.